Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Huge update today. The entire VCT 2024 Canada has been revealed by Riot Games. Lots of controversial reaction to this one, but also on the Rostermania side as well. s0m responding to rumours that he is going to get dropped from NRG in addition to FNS and Ares leaving the roster as well. That would leave Victor and Crashies only as it stands on NRG going into next season. Is any of this true? Very much interested to your perspective in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's begin then here with Ready for 2024. This is the TLDR on the VALORANT Champions Tour. Good that they've got this already confirmed by now, and well, we can see how everything goes. Lots of controversy though, I've got to say. The first big news is that VALORANT Masters Shanghai is going to be the second Masters of the year. The first Masters will be in Madrid. This is really cool. I think perfect city to host it. Makes perfect sense. They haven't confirmed yet where Champions is going to be. I would presume at this point that it's probably going to be an APAC, is it not? Because we haven't, I don't think, had an APAC champion so far. So maybe they do it in Seoul or something. I think that'd be really cool. But we'll see what they decide to do on that front. But yes, Madrid Masters is the first one of the season. Shanghai Masters the second one. And also a big confirmation on the Chinese League. Confirmed that there will be a fourth league for China coming in 2024. 10 partner teams, of course, will be locked in. Announced very soon, presumably. And there will be the Ascension tournament will go on this December, right? Because every other league around the world is going to have 11 teams in it for next season because the Ascension teams such as the Guard qualified in. So the Chinese league will also need to have 11 teams. So it means there's going to be 10 partner teams, and then of the ones that don't get partnered, they will have an Ascension tournament effectively later this year. So that's the plan on that front. It was inevitable, but yes, now it indeed has happened. Now, the big drama I've got to say about this first of all is, so we'll go through this first of all. There are kickoff events around the world, which I said was a good thing. Slightly strange, I think, that there's going to be no Masters after the second stage. So it's like kickoff and then Masters, stage 1 then Masters, stage 2 then Champions. I think it should be stage 2 then Masters then Champions. I don't think there's any reason to have anything different to that, but maybe for next year. But a kickoff tournament is good. I think they said it's going to be like a 2-week tournament at the start of each regional league just to figure out which teams qualify for the first Masters. But that first Masters event is only going to have 8 teams in it, which is really strange to me. So Champions is going to have 16 teams as usual. Masters Shanghai is going to have 12 teams, which to me is the absolute bare minimum teams you should be having at an international event as far as I'm concerned, especially when there are going to be 44 teams now internationally, 4 different leagues, 11 teams per league, and next year it's going to be 12 teams per league, so it's going to be, you know, even more than that. So I think it goes up to 14, doesn't it? So at some point in the next few years, there will be, I mean, what is that? 56 teams in the international leagues, and you're having 12 go to an event, or apparently at Madrid, it's going to be 8 from the kickoff event in each region around the world. The top 2 teams at those kickoff tournaments that are going to be held in region, those 2 teams qualify for Madrid, but only those 2 teams. So, you know, all of the regions are going to be stacked. Look at Americas, just for example. There's going to be teams like Loud. You've got, you know, Sentinels, obviously Cloud9, 100 Thieves, NRG, whatever. Like, all of these teams, only 2 get to go to the first Masters. Like, that doesn't seem right as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, that's what it's going to be. I guess they want every tournament over the season to get bigger and better. So they're like, all right, we'll do 8 teams in Madrid, 12 in Shanghai, 16 at Champions. But I don't think that's the way to do it, especially long term. In 44 teams internationally, only 8 at the first event doesn't seem right as far as I'm concerned. Now, the qualification will also be determined in part by championship points, which get accrued over the season for good results. Challengers does thankfully go the entire year. Ascension will also be after Champions now, which does create some maybe slight issues because as soon as Champions ends, that's pretty much when all the Tier 1 teams make moves. But yet, if you're a Tier 2 team and you're still playing in Ascension and you don't end up qualifying, you won't get a spot in Tier 1 because those teams have already decided their rosters by the time that it's done for you. Let's say M80 this season, they didn't qualify, but if you're Nismo, if you're Koala Noob or something, you could still get signed to a Tier 1 team right now when they're making their roster changes as soon as Champions ends. Whereas next year, that won't be the case anymore. So I think it's more good than it's bad, but there are some downsides. And then Challengers continues while the Game Changers Championship is going on at the end of the season. But again, it's got to be noted, the kickoff starts in, let's just say, late January or something, and Stage 2 runs until July. If you don't qualify for Champions, your season is again over in 6 months, which is just, as Nismo says, am I understanding correctly? If you don't qualify for champs, you've got another 5-6 months off season. So I think this year's Canada is better. I think it's a step forward. As I say, I would personally like to see another Masters event after Stage 2 and then do Champions after that. But, that's just my perspective. And in Challengers, sure, there is less of an off-season and the season continues for longer. But, I mean, it's basically a 6-7-month season for the teams that are, actually not making champions, for example. And as Chronicles says, there's no rest again. And this is one of the other points that people have made. That maybe it's better to spread out the season a little bit more, finish one of the splits and have a couple of weeks off. Give the players some sort of a break during the regular season, because I don't think the best approach is necessarily to have 7 months on just full-blooded action the whole time, especially if you're a team going to all the international events, and then 5 months rest. Maybe it makes more sense to spread out the season a little bit more and give some slightly more, break periods in between. Nothing too long, nothing like a month off for no reason, but a couple of weeks here and there might be a good idea. So that's Chronicles' perspective at the very least. We also got something, Nismo was talking about how they used to have all these organizations competing in open qualifiers before the Partnership League. At the same time, the reason why that was true was because these organizations were trying to get partnered. So, it wouldn't necessarily have lasted for the long term anyway. And I did think this was kind of spicy though. Some of the orgs that regularly struggled are in franchising. They couldn't make the best decisions in roster building then, but they can now. And Psycho's like, Psycho responds to this almost kind of throwing shade at Sentinels. It seems that way at least, even though didn't Psycho kind of build the roster with his mate Def and it didn't really work out? So, I don't know. There's been people roasting Psycho for this response, to be fair. But we've got to dive into Rostermania, right? Because Sentinels themselves are now building a new roster. Without Psycho in charge, of course, making any of the decisions. They're joking, Marv, Valid, you know how it goes. Finessing, for example. So, we know what they're up to here. But this was the big rumor that George Geddes came out with yesterday. That NRG is exploring a major, he says partial roster overhaul. This would be a major roster overhaul. We are heavily expecting Artist to be gone. We think the Yay might come in instead. But seemingly the rest of the team is also up for change as well. This is the article as it describes that sources suggest that the departure of FNS is likely as it stands. It's unclear whether FNS will join another team, but let's be honest, we think he's going to Sentinels. That's the current rumor release. According to sources, s0m could also be out of the team alongside Artist. s0m's contract is set to expire at the end of this year. He'll be able to join a new team without a buyout. That would leave Crashies and Victor, the two players remaining on the roster, which would be quite the revelation, right? So, George Geddes believes, or sources are suggesting, that it's at least possible that FNS, s0m, and Artist are all gone from this team. Dropping s0m would be a really big surprise to me. I don't know why they would do that, unless they want to get marved. And this is maybe one of the discussions that's been going down lately. Now, s0m does reply and say that's cap. So, we had this, basically he said it's not happening. But you can't really take the pro's words for this at face value, especially when, if his contract is up at the end of the year anyway, then it's, he wouldn't have signed a new deal yet. So I'm sure, I don't imagine he has. So I think it's definitely possible that this does come to pass. There was also discussions here between s0m and FNS on stream last night, discussing how, they would feel really angry towards NRG if they were to be removed. And you've got, especially from FNS's perspective, you've got to realize that he is just, joking around. He always does this type of stuff. But still, some people would say, well, would he be having these thoughts toward NRG if he was still committed to the organization 100%? Would they just kind of brush it off and sweep it under the rug if they were going to be staying there? Maybe, but also maybe not.
Say I got cut, right?
Yeah.
Say I got cut tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then they picked up any caller. Let's think of a caller that's Steel. They picked up Steel, let's say.
Yeah.
And they started getting better results. I'd be fuming.
Oh yeah, that's normal.
I would want this team to lose every single match for at least 3 to 4 months, and then I'd get over it.
Same.
Yeah, you guys think VCT is out there happy his team's owning? No. All that shit you see, that's fake as. Y'all crazy you think he's sitting there smiling happy. That's insane to me.
True, chat. If I got cut and I got replaced, I'd pray on NRG's downfall.
Deadass.
That ass. I would want them to lose every game 13-0, nothing less.
So the last couple of days, we have seen some screenshots like this. For example, we see Victor, Chet, and Trent all in a lobby together playing against some, FaZe team with Baby Bay, just some sort of pickup thing. But we've also seen over the last couple of days a game, I think there was maybe Trent in there or one of the guard players, Victor and Marved as well. And at the time I was like, that's interesting. Is Victor going to be gone from NRG and going to like the guard or something? But maybe it makes more sense the other way around. I don't know if you guys pointed it out, that maybe Victor stays in NRG because, if FNS is gone, Crashies and Victor probably want to stay as a duo, don't they? So I would say it's quite likely that Victor and Crashies stay on NRG. Then they bring in someone else. So maybe it's Trent that comes in from the guard to NRG. Then you've got the likes of Marved, who I think has been spotted playing with Victor in the last couple of days here and there. Doesn't necessarily mean they're dropping s0m for Marv, but it's definitely an option, isn't it? So I think that's just one thing to look at. That maybe Victor Crashies, one of the players from the guard, maybe Trent, maybe bring in Valen as well. Could you imagine like maybe Valen is the new IGL, Valen, Trent, I don't know. It would be interesting in terms of roles. There'd be some work to be done on that, but nonetheless that might be a direction that NRG are presently considering. So very much intrigued to your perspective on this stuff in the comments section below. We'll also quickly mention it from Cupid, who was the 6th player basically for Cloud9. They've allowed him to explore options going forward. So yeah, C9 also making some pretty serious changes going into next year. Now just before we close out the video, wanted to mention this that George Getters also puts out yesterday. I'm not sure there's any crazy new information here because I'm pretty sure this has been going on for about 2 years with ESIC, the esports basically like integrity commission or whatever it's called, speaking with Riot about the possibility of let's say matching the punishments that Valve gave to some CS players that are accused of match fixing into Valorant as well. This is the likes of Marved and Steel and other players like that. So if this does develop quickly, I don't think there's any like crazy update on this yet, but it's at least possible that at some point the bans are mirrored. And there were even some rumors, I think, last off-season, or maybe when that was right, when partnerships first happened last year, there was talk that Marv hadn't decided to step away and take a break, but he was actually being forced to because they weren't going to allow him to compete because of these accusations come the actual franchise league. Turns out that wasn't the case at all, but maybe 1 or 2 years on it could be. So yeah, definitely some stories to watch there on Marv, I suppose, going forwards. But also we've got to mention that today the World Championship is back underway. This is the big weekend. 2 games today out of the 4 remaining in the tournament. PaperX Evil Geniuses is 1. This is a really difficult series to call. I think PaperX will go in as the favourite. I'm actually going to take EG winning this one 2-1. I think that depending on the way the vetoes go, they might have a slight map pool advantage, EG. So I'm going to favour them, but honestly, this is really difficult. And then Fnatic Loud. I've got to think that Fnatic get the revenge. We haven't seen many times this tournament any team get revenge on a previous defeat. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have Fnatic advancing here in another 2-1. But I think it's going to be really close. And Fnatic were very vulnerable even in the series they played so far. And Loud will fully believe that they can take them down again. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.